Latvia. Latvia, which was occupied and annexed by the USSR in June 1940, declared its independence on August 21, 1991. The USSR recognized its sovereignty on September 6, and United Nations membership followed shortly thereafter. Latvia was admitted to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the European Union in 2004. The capital and chief city is Riga. Land. Latvia lies along the shores of the Baltic Sea and the Gulf of Riga, and it is bounded by Estonia to the north, Russia to the east, Belarus to the southeast, and Lithuania to the south. Latvia contains a multitude of rivers that drain into the Baltic Sea. The largest are the Western Dvina, locally called the Daugava, with a total length of 222 miles 357 km. In Latvia, the Gauja, Russian Gauja, the Venta, and the Lilup. Amid the hills, many of which are forested, are numerous lakes, some measuring up to about 12 square miles 30 square km. Latvians' soils are predominantly pizzolic, though calcareous soils characterize the Semigalia plain located just east of the eastern Kurzeme uplands. Swampy soils are found in some areas, particularly the East Latvian lowland. Erosion is a problem in the more intensely cultivated hilly areas. Climate. The climate is influenced by the prevailing southwesterly winds coming from the Atlantic. Humidity is high and the skies are usually cloudy. There are only about 30 to 40 days of sunshine per year. Average precipitation usually exceeds 20 inches, about 500 mm on the lowlands, and may approach or exceed 30 inches, about 760 mm on the uplands. The frost-free season lasts about 125 to 155 days. Summers are often cool and rainy. The mean temperature in June is in the mid-60s F, with occasional jumps into the mid-90s F. Winter sets in slowly and lasts from the middle of December to the middle of March. Plant and animal life. More than half of Latvia is covered with forests, meadows, pasture swamps, and wasteland. Forests account for more than 1/3 of the total area, and about 1/10 of the forests are cultivated. The larger forest tracts are in the northern part of the Kurzeme Peninsula along the banks of the Western Dvina, and in the northeast where conifers predominate. Of the deciduous species, birch, aspen, and alder are the most prevalent. Meadows are found both in the river valleys and among the hills. Latvia's fauna consists of squirrels, foxes, hare, lynx, and badgers. Somewhat less common are ermines and weasels. Conservation measures have resulted in an increase in the number of deer, and elk and beavers have been reintroduced to Latvia. The country's bird population includes the nightingale, oriole, blackbird, woodpecker, owl, grouse, partridge, finch, tomtit, quail, and lark. Storks and herons are usually found in the marshes and meadows. People, ethnic groups, languages, and religion. Before Soviet occupation in 1940, ethnic Latvians constituted about 3/4 of the country's population. Today, they make up about 3/5 of the population, and Russians account for about 1/4. There are small groups of Belarusians, Ukrainians, Poles, Lithuanians, and others. The official language of Latvia is Latvian, however, nearly 1/3 of the population speaks Russian. Smaller numbers speak Romani, the Indo-Aryan language of the Roma, and Yiddish, a Germanic language. The majority of Latvians adhere to Christianity, mainly Lutheranism, Roman Catholicism, and Eastern Orthodoxy. About 1/4 of Latvians consider themselves non-religious. Latvia had a significant Jewish population, estimated at more than 90,000, and the 193s rose until the Soviet and German occupations during World War II, when tens of thousands of Latvian Jews fled the country, were deported to prison camps or concentration camps, or were killed. Nazi forces were responsible for between 65,000 and 75,000 of these deaths. By war's end, only several thousand Latvian Jews remain. Economy of Latvia. Industrialization in Latvia began in the latter part of the 19th century, and by the late 20th century, the country was the most heavily industrialized of the Baltic states. Substantial economic changes occurred following Latvia's independence in 1991 as the country transitioned to a market economy. Starting in the mid-1990s, the economy diversified, and by the early 21st century, most industry in Latvia had been privatized. Agriculture and fishing. About 1/3 of agricultural land in Latvia is used for crop cultivation, and about 1/10 is dedicated to pasture for livestock. Of the crops, grain, mainly rye, is the most important. Wheat, oats, flax, and barley are also significant. Potatoes, onions, carrots, and sugar beets are the main crops produced for export. Collectivization of agriculture was accomplished against resistance in 1947 to 50. Up to the time of independence in 1991, there were collective farms and state farms. The collectivization became a goal of the newly independent government. During the Soviet period, Latvia was a net importer of agricultural products, albeit on a small scale. After independence, it was hoped that the privatization of agriculture would lead to higher levels of production and a favorable balance of trade in agricultural commodities, but as a result of the economic hardships of adjusting to a market economy and of the high cost of equipment required, agriculture contributed only a small percentage of the gross domestic product in the early 1990s. By the early 21st century, agriculture had been completely privatized. Latvia's fishing industry accounts for only a tiny percentage of the GDP, and fish products for export have decreased in importance. In general, sport fishing has contributed more to Latvia's annual catch from inland waters than has commercial fishing. Much of the catch from the Baltic is consumed domestically as a source of protein, most notably codfish and herring. The most common species of fish found in inland waters are pike, bream, carp, perch, eel, and lamprey. Some salmon and trout are bred artificially in nurseries and then released into rivers. Crayfish and carp have been raised successfully in ponds. Transportation and telecommunications. Latvia's favorable geographic location and temperate climate allow for year-round freight transport. Major ports are located in Riga, Ventspils, and Lipča, and there are several smaller ports located along the coast. An east-west railway corridor allows for the easy passage of freight from inland Latvia out to its main ports. There is an international airport in Riga. The telecommunications sector of Latvia is partially nationalized. The number of internet users increased significantly from the late 1990s to the mid-2000s. However, it is still somewhat lower than the average for the European Union. Cellular phone usage in Latvia is much higher than fixed-line phone usage. Education. General literacy was achieved in Latvia in the 1890s. Education is free and compulsory until age 16. In 1998, education law ensured that a certain amount of instruction be provided in the Latvian language in the country's minority schools. However, state financing is provided for minority schools that teach classes in Belarusian, Estonian, Hebrew, Lithuanian, Polish, Romani, Russian, and Ukrainian to preserve each minority's heritage and culture. Notable institutions of higher learning include the University of Latvia 1919, the Latvia University of Agriculture 1939, and Riga Technical University 1990. The Stockholm School of Economics in Riga opened in 1994. The Latvian Academy of Sciences 1946 in Riga is one of the top research institutes in the country. Cultural life. Because it has been invaded and occupied by neighboring powers for much of its history, Latvia has had to struggle to preserve its distinctive language, folklore, and customs. The country's loss of political independence in the 13th century effectively halted the development of Latvian culture for centuries. Indeed, it is only since the end of the 19th century that Latvians have been able to openly and actively celebrate their cultural heritage. Daily life and social customs, religious and folkloric festivals, which were banned under Soviet rule, are celebrated again in traditional style. The festivals, complete with dance, music, and song, are usually performed in colorful costumes that are typical of specific regions of the country. The most important annual festival is Jani, a midsummer tradition based on an ancient pagan ceremony that celebrates the summer solstice. It is considered bad luck to fall asleep before dawn during Jani. Huge bonfires are lit and special foods and beverages are prepared. Staples of Latvian cuisine include caraway cheese, bacon, berries, potatoes, sausages, soups, and rye bread. Smoked or salted herring is also a common dish. Berry pies and tarts served with sour cream are favorite desserts.